Good afternoon. I would like to welcome you to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. Sorry to disrupt all the great conversation, but we're going to get started. As you might know, CMC connects people and ideas through community conversations like this one every single week. I'm Kristen Easterday. I'm Director of the Communications and Public Affairs at the Columbus Regional Airport Authority, and I also have the pleasure of being a board member to the CMC. We are grateful to the presenting sponsor of our live stream today, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, and to our live stream partner, the Columbus Dispatch. And thank you to the Ellis for hosting us once again. Every CMC forum takes a village, and let's thank everyone for their support today. So it's no secret to all of us that Columbus is a great place to live, but our city has long sought to shape a brand identity that's appealing, aspirational, and authentic to who we are. This week, we get to dig into a new marketing campaign designed to bring attention to Ohio's capital city. And we'll also learn about the findings of a new study that looked into how Columbus is seen by the outside world as we explore the Columbus brand and what it means to all of us. Let's welcome today's distinguished panelists. We have Yohanan Yogi Terrell, CEO of Warhol and Wall Street and Director of the Columbus Fashion Initiative. We have Sarah Towns, Chief Marketing and Innovation Officer for Experience Columbus, as well as the Greater Columbus Sports Commission. We have Stephanie Spicer, President of L'Acquire. Steve Soucy, author and Senior Director of Brand Strategy for Northwestern Mutual. And our host, Jennifer Walton, Chief Brand Officer for Sky Nile Consulting. Jennifer, welcome to CMC. The podium is all yours.
All right, thank you so much. It is such an honor to be here today. I have to start off by saying that participating in a CMC forum was on my 40 by 40 list, and I am 10 days away, so I did it. I'm such a Leo, like who does that? Okay, all right, so we're gonna have a lot of fun today. It's such an honor to be up here with you all. I've got a lot of questions for you. I know that you all agreed to those questions, so I'm gonna keep on answering them. Then we'll obviously have an opportunity to address the audience, okay? So is everybody ready? We're talking about marketing, so there's no way that we can be stuffy or anything like that. So everybody relaxed and cool? Look at Yogi, like come on. All right. Okay, so I wanted to first align on a standard definition of brand so that for all of you in the room that you kind of understand how we're operating. We're all experts in this space, but this is inside baseball for us, so how can we bring you into the conversation? According to HubSpot, a marketing customer experience platform, a brand is the identity and story of a company that makes it stand out from its competitors that sells similar products or services. The goal of branding is to earn space in the minds of the target audience and become their preferred option for doing business, okay? Everybody's got it. So to my panelists, let's start with, why do you think that there's this low awareness of the Columbus brand? And can you think of other cities that have branded themselves really well? Let's start with you, Yogi.
All right, let's get into it. I think the thing about Columbus's brand, and many people talk about this, and I'm pretty sure everybody in this room has had a Columbus conversation with somebody from another city or something like that, and we all hear about the response from people saying, oh, you know, what's happening in Columbus? And I think the biggest, the biggest part of that conversation is the brand is not what, you say about, yourself or your company or anything like that. It's really the experience that somebody has with you, right? Or your company or your business or your city. And so I think for us, it's really about that experience. So many people either they don't have a perception because they haven't been here, or they have a perceived perception from what they've heard from way back in the day. So we still get that, oh, you're a football city, right? Or you're like Cowtown, right? Or, and that's because they're basing it off of old data, right? And so I think right now we are really looking at how do we position people to experience our city, and that is matched with, a bigger voice that's where we really need to start taking that direction into it. So our brand is there. Our brand is the experience. And once people experience us as a city, they love us.
Yeah. Sarah, what do you think? I mean, you're tasked with kind of holding this weight. So what do you think?
Yes, absolutely. I will reiterate what Yogi said. To know Columbus is to love Columbus. We know when people come here, they have an amazing experience in our community, whether they are here visiting friends and relatives, they're here maybe coming through for a leisure visit, they're here for a meeting or convention, or even contemplating bringing a business here. If we can get them here, they love our city. So from my perspective, I think we just need to get more people to know what it is that we have here, what our special sauce is in Columbus, what we have to offer. It's not a perception problem, it's really more of an awareness problem. And it's something that we've been working on. We leverage all of our channels to their fullest potential, paid, own, earn, partners, many of you in this room. We need to do more. And that is such a huge and exciting opportunity because we do have so many experiences to talk about. And we know that when people come here, they see it and they feel the love that we have here for our city, even as residents. In terms of, I think you asked, cities that do it well. It's truly the cities that really look at who their authentic selves are. So if you think about the Nashvilles of the world, we know Nashville and country music. We know Austin has sort of a music vibe. We know Louisville, if you like bourbon or not, you're known for bourbon and the Derby. And really the exciting opportunity for Columbus is we're not just one thing. We're not just a one-trick pony. We have a lot of things going for us. And we'll dig into that a little bit later, so I don't want to take up too much time right now, but really exciting opportunity for our city.
Stephanie, what do you think?
I mean, so coming from the outsider's perspective, I completely echo what everyone said about it is a awareness problem. As a resident of Charlotte, I had no idea what Columbus was like until I started coming here to work with these lovely people, and I have to tell you, I was blown away. There's so much to offer here, and that's one of the challenges that we faced was how do we tell the story in a concise way that's gonna rally people around it? And yes, there are ways to do that, like what Nashville has done and really owned, for them, it's music. But that would have been doing a really big disservice to Columbus because you are so much more than a one-trick pony. And so what we really had to think about is how do we brand the city around the feeling? How do we brand the city around the personality, the vibe, the experience, to use Yogi's word, in a way that's gonna get people to say, I haven't never thought about it like that, but I wanna check it out, right? That's the key. They have to wanna check it out.
And Steve, I know your dad is here, right?
My dad is here.
Okay, so yeah,
He
let's
is
make
the
him proud.
son of a woman who grew up 3 blocks from here. And I am originally a proud Columbus native and I moved in 1997 to New York. So I bring a combination of perspectives from my fellow panelists where I'm from here and have watched on the sidelines as it has absolutely exploded and for good reason. But then also I come back home and I get to see, I get to use my GPS because everything has changed so much that I don't remember where anything is. So it's been really exciting. Thank you for hosting this. This is a panel 20 years in the making. Yeah. But I do think that in hindsight, we look back at 20 years ago, I don't think we knew ourselves well enough. I also don't think the world knew enough to be able to make the kinds of once in a generation, maybe 2 generation investment that we're experiencing today. We sit in the middle of a ring of fire, NFL cities. It's just the way it is in this country. So when Cleveland, Cincinnati, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Indianapolis get all the attention, it used to be a curse. Now I see it as a pure blessing. Whenever I'm on a plane, like for one time when I lived in Europe and I was walking through Munich airport and somebody stopped me saying, "Those are the greatest shoes I've ever seen. They're Ohio State Buckeye shoes." And he's like, "Are you from Columbus?" There's such an intrinsic continuum between the Ohio State athletic shadow and what Columbus represents. Everywhere I ever go, "Oh, you're from Columbus? Did you go to Ohio State?" Mm-hmm. That's a tail that's wagging a big, beautiful dog. So it's now time. We've got to do it right, and we've got to do it soon. I love the Columbus Dispatch, but it's not up to the press to frame our narrative. It's up to this room, decision makers, folks that are planning to invest, be the vanguard of something that is going to blow the minds, not just of the Midwest. I keep telling people, don't think as far as Indiana, think India, because it's not going to be long until people in Hyderabad are going to be looking for jobs at Intel. And they're going to click on Wikipedia to find out what we are, what we represent. We've got to start those conversations today.
Well, I think we have a really great conversation starter, because the whole point of us talking about the brand is that there are people doing a lot of really great work to tell that story. And so I think we'd like to show you some of that work.
Everyone thinks they know us, but they don't. We're more than meets the Buckeye. If you're one of us, you already know. We're the #1 soccer team in the U.S. #1 for fashion professionals in the U.S. A top 10 culinary destination in the world. A beautiful contradiction. The #1 ranked science museum 4 years in a row, and a top 10 ranked bar scene. A top 5 city for young professionals. And game day traditions that go way back. Can a place this unreal actually be real? Yes, Columbus.
All right, give it up to the team for making that. Yes, Columbus. Okay, well, I got to bring it right back to Sarah. So Sarah, talk to us. I mean, Columbus is not a company, but we are certainly selling something, and you mentioned we want people to visit here. We want them to live, to work, to play here. Talk about the process, the perception study, all the work that went into, yes, Columbus.
Yes, I will do that. That's awesome. And at the very end of the video, it should have been a very loud yes, Columbus. So thank you for reiterating that.
I got you.
So it does really all go back to our perception study, which we were able to field now a little over a year ago. We all have different thoughts about Columbus, about campaign work, about how to engage residents, visitors, et cetera. But we really wanted to root this work in the data. And so we had the opportunity to partner with the City of Columbus, Franklin County, One Columbus, and Downtown Columbus, Inc. to field the first study that we've been able to do since about 2017. And you can imagine perceptions have changed significantly, but we have a lot of work to do. What we heard is that residents have so much pride in their city, which is awesome, like all of you in here, that's why you're here today. But you want more people to know about Columbus. You want Columbus to get the credit it deserves. We're tired of being that, hidden gem or Midwest nice or however you've heard people talk about Columbus. We heard that inside the state, there's good familiarity, but there's still an opportunity, even inside the state. And then if you go outside of the state of Ohio, even in a 250-mile radius, there's pretty low awareness of what Columbus has to offer. And to a 500-mile radius, even smaller. But, truly, that is the opportunity. That is the opportunity that we have before us. We also heard we don't have a negative perception. There just isn't a perception. So that makes Columbus, that makes our city right to tell people what it is that we have to offer. And I don't know how many of you are aware of all the amazing accolades that Columbus has been stacking up over the last few years. All of these are very recent, within the last year. And there are dozens more. And, we really felt like this was a huge opportunity, grounded in an accolade, grounded in a truth that we're not telling. Other people are coming in and having that experience to tell our story. From our perception study, we partnered with our agency of record, Lukwire. Again, really tried to make this a community endeavor. We pulled in people from our Marketing and Destination Experience Committee, both board and community members. We, again, went back to some of our other community partners and stakeholders in Columbus and invited them to participate along the way. We built what we think is a pretty compelling brand platform, and I'm always happy to share more details on any of this work with anyone and beyond if you're interested. And then we kicked off creative development, which is the fun part. We all love the creative and had the opportunity to look at a couple of different ways to tell the Columbus story. And this one, whenever I tell you, was a clear winner. Oftentimes when you go into communication checks and you have concept creative, you get a little bit of a read, but there's still some art with the science. This was 100% the clear winner. It had people, we did a qualitative study and then some focus groups around this work as well. People were immediately saying, I didn't know that. Really? I live in Columbus. Or I'm going to Google that. I got to make a trip to Columbus. On the meeting planner side or the business decision maker side, people said, that is the answer to the question. Yes, Columbus. Bring my event to Columbus. Move my headquarters to Columbus. So it really worked on a variety of different levels. And so we just launched I don't know, time is crazy right now. But just a few weeks ago, and the response has been fabulous.
Excellent, awesome. And so great work. So the goal is that everyone should be responding when someone asks, should I do this, should I do that? You should say,
Yes, Columbus.
okay, that didn't work that well, so I get it. But if someone asks, what would you say? Yes. All right, great. Thank you so much. And so, Stephanie, this is not your first time doing something like this. You had the, For Real Visit North Carolina campaign. So can you talk a little bit about what it means to bring in local culture, arts, community initiatives, and getting the voice of the communities that these cities are impacting at the table for these things?
It is the core of all of it.
Yep.
Right? Anytime you're developing a brand, and it could be a destination brand, it could be a clothing brand, it could be any brand, corporate brand, you have to start by what's true, right? What is the real truth of what you're offering? And in order to do that, we had to understand what the real truth of what this city brought to the table. So it was crucial to get the perspectives of all the different constituencies that Sarah talked about, to understand from a resident perspective how people felt. And I think the thing that we uncovered that to us was just so powerful was the fact that this city, the way this city operates is different. There is this sense of collaboration, this sense of energy, this sense of enthusiasm, this sense of we can do it together and our best days are ahead of us. And that is something that we had not felt across any of the cities that we looked at. And it was founded in truth, right? So if you think about that attitude, that sense of innovation, that sense of we're gonna make it better together, Columbus has always been that for a number of different industries, right? Fashion, for QSR in terms of developing new products and new offerings. This has always been a little bit of a test market for the world. And so that fabric of truth combined with this mantra that everybody that we talked to had, we knew there was something special there, and there was something that we really needed to build around. And so really thinking about Columbus as a destination for new and exciting and looking to the future, that was what we knew we had to rally around. And the way that we did that through the campaign was to give people a new framework. So I loved Steve's point. I did not turn with the microphone. I loved his point about it's not Indiana, it's India. We needed to give them a new framework. So you're not comparing Columbus to Cincinnati. You're comparing Columbus to Paris, to Barcelona, to Madrid, to New York City, right? That's the stage we want to be on. That's the place that we really want to reframe the city to be in the comp set with. And it sparked a lot of really great conversation.
Yeah. Thank you for that. And talking about competing on a global stage, Yogi, I feel like you are a big part of why Columbus is #1 in the conversation around fashion, but you are competing with the Milan, the New York, the London. Talk a little bit about what sets Columbus apart in the fashion space, and what are the people that make that up?
Yeah, so for anybody who knows me before 2017, I've been in marketing and strategy for years. We've been running Warhol on Wall Street for about 13 years. And so I really kind of fell into fashion through learning. I was on a Create Columbus commission with Mayor Coleman, and it was all about attracting talent to the city. And we started looking at, what is Columbus made up of? What are our biggest industries in the city? And what is the culture really, tapped into? And so looking at fashion, that's when I discovered that Columbus was the 3rd largest fashion industry in the country. And it was also one of our top 5 economic industries, right? So when I learned that, I immediately knew that there was a space to be filled. There was a huge opportunity with that because fashion is one of those things that transcends both culture and economic development. And so from there, I started down a path of trying to connect the dots on how can we embrace fashion as a part of our culture because it's already a part of our DNA. And so when you think about that and you think about our history, right? I mean, we have decades and decades of history in the fashion industry here. I mean, there's archives all the way from the 1800s, but we also need to invest into the future of that. And so what I've been doing over the past, 7 years since I've started down this path is really learning a lot about the industry globally and where Columbus is positioned. And so we're not going to be the New York or the LA, we're not going to be the face of fashion here, but what I believe is we have the opportunity to be the heart of fashion. And fashion is changing. And so what we're aiming to do is to cultivate that part of the culture around the industry that is here because we can use that to create opportunity in our city, but also really own what's been in our DNA from the day, from day one, which is fashion. We've been a shoe manufacturer. We've been a huge manufacturer of women's apparel. This is all before L Brands. And so we just really need to embrace who we are, and something like that will also attract people to come to the city, to invest in the city, and for us to grow. So it's very interesting how it's been panning out, but we have some very exciting, steps we're taking forward in the fashion industry. And our ultimate goal is that Columbus will be recognized beyond these walls as the fashion capital of the Midwest. It'll be an experience that people will want to come to because we'll build those assets and that ecosystem up. And it'll be opportunities for people right here in the city to be a part of that. And I think that is what's needed is the equity part of it all too. All of us need to be a part of that, and it's in our city. We all need to be a part of it.
Thank you for that. And something that I hope you all are hearing is that marketers don't just make things pretty. There's a lot of strategy, there's a lot of thought, there's a lot of data, research, and information. Thank you. There's a lot that goes into building a brand. There's a lot that goes into selling anything. And so what you're hearing across all of the panelists is all of that insight, all of that thought that then turns into a beautiful campaign. And so, Steve, you are the senior director of brand strategy. So I know you know a lot about this. You also have a very big global portfolio, a best-selling book. So you are an expert here. Talk a little bit for us around how having a strong brand can really influence what Yogi was talking about, that economic investment. And what you mentioned, like if we're going to have presence in India, what does that look like, and how should we be positioning our brand to grow this economic engine?
Great question. I would like to start with an address to Johan. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I know one part's absolutely true. The very first commercial flight in the history of mankind was from Dayton to Columbus carrying a bolt of fabric. I'm pretty sure that was the cargo. There's your fashion history. So not recent. In strategy, our job is to simplify and amplify. And what's great is the simpler the notion or the promise, the purpose can be articulated, the further it can be extended because you don't require extra care in loss in translation. So when I talk about not Indiana, but India, it's not going to be long until people are going to be introduced to Columbus in unexpected ways. Hopefully they're not unexpected for us, meaning our communication has been thought out and is in a runway awaiting their landing. So we have to think of all touch points. So case in point, when I lived in London, I heard the first mention of my hometown on the BBC, and it said, the president has landed in the capital city of the state of Ohio called Columbus. Fast forward a few years later, I moved back to the States. I watch BBC World religiously now, and the next two times were the last 2 months, and it was just simply in the city of Columbus. No of Ohio, no capital city of. We're moving needles because exposure is happening. Are we in control of that exposure or not? There are other Columbuses. There's even a Columbus, Ontario, for that matter. So we do suffer from a little bit of a momentary confusion problem. Which Columbus? Georgia? Indiana? Oh, no, Ohio. Once we get past that, though, the story is much larger. So when we want to go outside of the US, we talk about things like fashion. We talk about our aviation history. Excuse me, do you like flying? Okay, come to Columbus. So we invented that stuff over here in Central Ohio. And so if we can look at the broader terms and simplify these things, then we can atomize them and distribute them. And that's what strategy does, is just to make it really, really simple down to that crystal core of truth that you talked about.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And so we've got this amazing brand platform. I think we've started to kind of paint this vision for the future. I want us to think about, so what's next? And how do we activate this? And particularly, how do we get every resident to feel ownership over our Columbus brand and say, yes, Columbus? And I think to your point, Yogi, there's an equity element there too, of how do we make sure that everyone sees themselves in that and feels that pride? So I want to start with you, Yogi, if you could respond.
Yeah, sure. I think one of the things that the Yes Columbus campaign does is it creates curiosity. We've all seen travel and tourism commercials before where it's like, oh yeah, you got a pan shot, you got somebody doing a toast, you got somebody drinking a beer, you got some kid running, and it's like, come to blank city, right? I mean, that's so traditional and expected. But what the Yes Columbus campaign does is it actually makes you think, and it's an authentic conversation that you're having with yourself of, oh, really? Yeah. And then you go to check it out, you Googles and all that type of stuff. So I think what we have to do moving forward, though, is to balance out amplifying that voice with cultivating the culture. At the end of the day, your brand is really what's bubbling at the ground level, and what the residents and the creatives and the culture is really creating. That is what's going to grow your city, and it's been studies that have shown that it's not build a big city and then the culture comes to your city. It's culture and arts actually create the economic development that cities actually grow from. And so we have to double the efforts into our community and cultivating our culture. And that starts with, creating platforms for creatives and artists, right? That comes to, finding out what is the emerging culture and investing into that. Because once that culture bubbles up, that expounds outside of, your walls, and that happens through things like social media. They want to see the things that are bubbling up. People, when they travel, they're looking at TikToks, and they're looking at the hidden gems and the secret places and the cool things that are happening and the over-the-top art and creative culture that is happening, and then they beeline it to your city. So we have to do the same, put the same effort into cultivating the culture and creating platforms so that, again, all of the residents in your city are being seen and being promoted and being amplified at the same time we're telling our story.
And so, Stephanie, what I heard Yogi just say is that you're going to have us all doing a TikTok dance related to Columbus, right?
That's actually the next exercise.
Okay, yeah. So what are your thoughts? How do we activate this and turn residents into brand ambassadors for this campaign?
But actually, to the point about this room doing a TikTok, I'm not saying you need to do that, because I don't have a TikTok channel, but it does start in this room. It starts with every single person being an ambassador for the city, sharing what you know about the city with people outside of it. There's going to be paid media support behind the campaign. There is paid media support behind the campaign, but paid media is dependent on dollars, right? And so, the more dollars you have, the more eyeballs you get in front of. So we have to amplify and support the paid media through grassroots outreach, through conversations like this, through your own social channels and your own networks, because it really does it's going to take everyone, we use the term singing from the same song sheet, in order for the brand to really get out there.
Awesome. And yes, Sarah, what are your thoughts? How do you want us to do this?
All of the above. Completely echo what Yogi was saying. It's really, truly about building the experiences, continuing to invest in the culture. We often say at Experience Columbus, we're the sum of many parts. So all of our small businesses, our minority-owned businesses, our community partners, our cultural arts institutions, the experiences that we have here are what give us the things to talk about. So really critical that we continue to invest in those things. And, absolutely, we want to be able to tell the story more broadly. In order to do that, it does require investment. And so that's something our organization is working on along with other community partners and stakeholders. But this is an amazing platform, and we'd love to be able to tout it. I have had the opportunity to share with a variety of groups, small business owners, different consortiums throughout the community, along with my team, and they all say, "Oh my gosh, this is amazing. Are you just going to shout this over and over and as often?" I'm like, yes, absolutely. but there are limits with the budgets that we have. So that is where, as Stephanie was saying, everyone in this room comes in. One of our charges to Lou Choir when we started to develop this campaign was to ensure that the platform was broad enough that all of our community could see themselves within it. And I often view the work that, and I do view the work that we do as sort of open source for this community. So if there are video assets, if there are photo assets, if you want to kind of do your own version of Yes Columbus that makes sense in your sphere of influence, we would love to help and support you in that because we are the sum of many parts in this community. So not only starts with everybody in this room, a little more investment would be awesome. But yes, just, echo what everybody else said as well.
In our business, we call that user-generated content. So if you would like to film a little something on your own camera, do it in vertical, right? And then just send it right on to Sarah. So it is the Columbus Metropolitan Club's longstanding tradition to take audience questions. And so we'll move to questions from our live stream and in-person audiences in just a few moments. So if you're thinking of a question or if you've got something, you can go ahead and make your way to the microphone in the back. If you're watching online, please make sure that you type your questions into the chat. But before we do so, panelists, I do have one more question for you all, and I'd like to start with Steve, and you can certainly talk about your book, but what are the authors that you're reading right now, podcasts or other marketing channels that you're tuned into right now?
I am unabashedly a massive fan of responsible AI. So, and just in a brand strategy context, crunching a lot of unstructured data to arrive at dominant themes. So I know that's probably really familiar to Stephanie's world too, where we are trying to arrive at something really popular and the data prove it out. So I haven't been reading. I've been listening to The Neuron AI, which is a great podcast, as well as TED has an AI-specific podcast series that I'd ask you to check out. The last book I read was Authenticity by a Harvard professor, which was really, really fantastic, speaking on the notion of a great destination brand being authentic to your true self. Yeah, that's my answer.
So you're clearly in the AI space. Are you concerned at all?
I'm not, because I am actually artificial. So I've got to pass.
I appreciate this. This
You
is
flesh-based beings, however.
yeah, hologram Steve, everyone.
I am actually slightly concerned. I'm not worried about the tech. I'm worried about the people.
Agreed. Okay. All right. Yeah, Stephanie, what? Who are you tuned into?
Before I answer that question, I want to actually tag on to what you were saying, worried about the tech. No, worried about the people, not worried about the tech. It is how we interpret the tech and use the tech. And has anyone seen the Google spot that just came out, the Google AI spot? Horrible. Anyway, I'm blown
That's
away
not
by
Gemini, right?
It
is
is.
it Gemini?
Yeah,
Okay, that wasn't-
yeah, it's yeah.
That wasn't good.
We'll go down a really bad rabbit hole if I go down that. But so the podcast that I'm obsessed with is actually not a marketing podcast necessarily. Anyone listen to Hidden Brain? Best podcast. Shankar Vedantam is like my hero. It's an NPR podcast, and it's about how people think and understanding what motivates us and what drives us. And when you think about marketing and influencing people to think a certain way, you have to understand where they're coming from and how they process information. So it is, hands down, my favorite thing to listen to, and I highly recommend it to pretty much everyone I talk to. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Sarah?
I'm a big social media person myself, so I probably spend too much time on social media, so that's not good. Or it's good, I'm not sure. I actually still love How I Built This. I know it's been around for a really long time, but if I have, an hour that's a little bit of a longer podcast, I absolutely love the stories, the entrepreneurship, somebody that started in their grandma's basement with a candy mold and an idea, or, and truly also how these brands have leveraged social media to build everything, and are now hundreds of millions of dollar, valued businesses is really phenomenal. So drive a lot of inspiration from that. I was just at a conference, and we had the opportunity to hear Arthur Brooks speak, and he wrote a book with Oprah about how to build the life you want. He is a Harvard business professor who teaches a class on happiness. He's actually an economics professor, but I, after hearing him, immediately bought his book, and so I'm reading that right now as well.
I hope you all recognize just the variety of information that these panelists are receiving as it relates to the context of marketing, because it's the study of human behavior. And so it's really great to hear that. Yogi, what are you into?
Well, right now I'm geeking out on this book called Rise of the Creative Class by Richard Foreman. I don't know if anybody's read that book, but it was written in 2010, but it's still very relevant today. And it really dives into the impact that arts and culture has on cities and also the economies. And so it really gives you good examples of what's been done in other markets and how small creative movements have created cultural shifts that have taken cities into, crazy, huge growth and development, and also gives you an insight into, it's very hard running a creative agency, and many creatives that are probably in the room probably have the same, and arts organizations, but we know that there's a personal story of impact, right? We're helping the young kid learn how to, create a brand or get into the industry. We know that there's a personal part, but there's a direct correlation economically, and most like nonprofits or creative organizations have a hard time being able to prove that. And so this book kind of dives into gathering the right data and information on how you can tell that story from an economic standpoint and be able to strengthen your opportunity to grow your platforms and have a bigger impact too as well. So it's a great book.
Thank you. That was Rise of the Creative Class?
Yes.
Okay, no one asked me, but that's because honestly, I'm not reading anything. I don't really have time. I have 2 kids that are 8 and 6, and so what I've actually been doing is paying attention to my peers. There's Marshall Shorts in the room, and so I've been really trying to understand storytelling. I mean, I work a lot with your team, and even like watching the work of John Talbert. Like, there's a lot of great storytellers that are right here, and so my husband, Sean Walton, he's probably one of the best ones. I hate to admit that. But I have honestly just been looking at how my peers are telling stories. I've been looking at old movies and just looking at how did we build and then bring people along, because I think storytelling is going to be a big part of how we move culture forward. So with that being said, Doug, in the back, you have some questions?
Jennifer, thank you very much, and thank you to all of today's panelists. Great conversation. I'm willing to bet the Columbus Metropolitan Library has some of those books to check out. That's going to be my guess.
Nice.
Thank you again, everyone, for joining us. If you have a question to ask, please join me here at the microphone. If you're watching online, please do type your question into the chat, and we'll try to get to as many questions today as we can. Great questions at CMC always have 2 things in common. They can be asked in less than 30 seconds or thereabouts, and they end in what punctuation? A question mark. That is correct. So here we go. I'll launch us off with this one. We recently had Governor DeWine at CMC. He was asked about attracting new people, especially young people, to Columbus. He said, "We can't do anything about February, but there were many reasons to move to Columbus or to stay here. What would you say to a young person thinking about making Columbus their home?"
Free beer. That's the time in their lives when they have everything in front of them. They may not have the most discretionary income, but what they have is a lot to win ahead of them. And when you think of world-class healthcare, you think of all of the, we've got so many headquarters of financial services entities here. There's so much to set you up for a long, healthy, exploratory life in Columbus, Ohio. So if somebody's in their 20s and they're just striking out in their early careers, I'd say it's all right in front of you in this town. And I didn't mean the free beer for serious, although it does work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's true. We also offer free beer in Charlotte, though. So I echo that, and I think, do you want to build something? Do you want to be a part of something that is growing and vibrant and really coming into its own? That's why you move here. You move here because you see potential and you want to seize it. That energy is palpable through so many different industries, and the opportunities are endless. So the people that you're going to attract are going to be the people that are hungry to make an impact.
I was just going to say, we have a lot of accolades around this as well. But, truly, such an amazing market for somebody that's just starting out. One of the things, back to the storytelling idea, that I have the opportunity to do in my role is hear a lot of the stories that are happening out in the community and hear from some of our local influencers on how they got started. The collaboration and mentorship that people have received in this community, we talk about it, it is true. And if you're looking for a podcast, Experience Columbus has one as well, Live Forward Live, little plug. But there are stories of so many people in our community who had an idea, who were maybe doing something that they didn't love. They, had an idea. They went to somebody who should have been their competitor, but they actually helped them get started and build their business plan, and now they're very successful today. Jenny Britton is one. Greg Lehman from Watershed, and the list goes on and on and on. It's an amazing market.
Do we have more? Yes, thank you.
Yes, hi. I'm Bill Wayhoff from Steptoe and Johnson, and I just kind of have a simple question. Since a lot of us are on LinkedIn and Facebook and what have you, is there any way for us to share that video, which would propagate it around the country, because all of us have contacts from around the country? Thank you.
We would love for you to share the video, and we will send it to the CMC team as a follow-up.
I will also say there's a lot of videos that live alongside that one that are more specific to beer, to dining, we're actually working with One Columbus as well from an economic development standpoint to really pull that campaign through business attraction. We are going to have a ton of videos by the time it's all said and done. And that way you guys can think about sharing them with the people who are going to be the most excited about the most specific videos. So we'll share all of them, get them out there. Yeah. Thank you.
They are on our Experience Columbus YouTube as well, so we can share that.
And I just wanted to add, I don't want it to be misunderstood too. Like, truly tell your own story as well with that. I think it's just so important that everyone sees themselves in what we're building, but that as we talk about storytelling and just how important all of our voices are, that we each play a role in contributing to that. Do we have any online? But I do see we have one here. Please.
Thank you. My name is Camille Seals. I'm the head of school at Columbus School for Girls. And I noticed in the video we showed the Buckeyes, but we're not really talking about the role of education as an attraction. As people are looking at jobs at Intel, their children have to go somewhere while they're at work. And so I'm wondering what role you see educational institutions like CSG playing in attracting people to Columbus, and what can we be doing to leverage the materials that you're putting out to both tell our story as educational institutions of choice for families who are coming from Paris, who are coming from India, who are used to schools like ours and need to know that those educational opportunities are also available here in Columbus.
Great question. Great question. I love that. I love the enthusiasm for that question, because I do think that that's a huge part of the experience of living here, and that's a huge part of the experience of getting people to want to come here. I will say most of the assets that have been developed to this point in time have been a little bit more focused on either telling the broader story or telling the travel-specific story to try to get people to come here and experience it for the first time. That being said, the work that I just referenced that we're doing with One Columbus will start to get into a little bit more of the why should you move here story, because that's a huge part of talent attraction, is making sure that people understand the landscape of education for their families as they're considering Columbus as a destination. So more to come on that. But I think the great thing about this campaign and the great thing about what we've uncovered is there are so many surprising aspects to being a part of the city that we have many, many, many stories to tell. So continue to bring them forward like that one, and we'll continue to think about the best way to get them out there.
I do agree. Since we're talking about the brand of Columbus, education is a big part of that. And I know a lot of people, when they talk about the city, especially when you're thinking about moving to the city, having quality schools is obviously a key determinant for a lot of people to make that decision. So I think as we're talking about the campaign that's kind of marketing more broader, what we offer as a part of our brand, education is definitely at the table, and I think that's when it comes to, us in the room being advocates of our city when we talk about, should I move there? Yeah, there's opportunity. We're definitely an opportunity city. There's culture here. There's great educational options here too as well.
Thank you. Sarah, this question might be for you. How is brand marketing for Columbus funded? Is it enough? And how does it compare to other cities and what they spend?
So a marketer will never say it's enough. So there's that.
Never enough.
So Experience Columbus is both publicly and privately funded. The public side of our funding comes from bed tax revenue, which we receive a portion of that. But the bed tax revenue also funds the Greater Columbus Sports Commission, the Greater Columbus Arts Council, the FCCFA, our convention center, and over 30 other human services organizations throughout Central Ohio. So lots of uses for that funding. So I like to think of us, we're sort of the revenue engine. We bring in the revenue through that bed tax and through all the great work that our organization and others do. And then that funding is dispersed throughout the community. The private side of our funding, we are a partner or member-driven organization. So Experience Columbus has over 1,000 local partners, many of whom are very small local businesses, minority businesses as well, which we have a big focus on in a special partnership with Columbus City Council and Councilmember Nick Bankston. And truly we see our role there as helping to amplify and tell their story, but there is a small portion of dollars that get paid into Experience Columbus for that as well. We really benchmark ourselves in Columbus. We have a competitive set. So there is over between 10 and 11, depending upon what chart you're looking at, cities that we look at that we often find ourselves competing against. So that could be bringing a big, huge meeting to Columbus, a sporting event. It compete in a variety of levels, even for leisure travelers as well. And when we look at our comp set, we are actually at the smallest funding level of anyone in our competitive set as it relates to marketing. So our CEO, Brian Ross, who I think is watching, would often say we punch above our weight, and we do because of the collaboration that we have in the community and the support, and we truly do have support from the city and the county and so many local stakeholders. But is it enough? Is it enough to compete? It is not.
Hi, I'm also Doug Buchanan. I'm the one with Business First. Earlier in the conversation, Austin and Nashville were brought up as cities with strong brand identities. And personally, I think both places sound awful. And I'm just wondering, I don't want to sound anti-growth, but is there a case for some level of anonymity while we deal with the growth that we already have? Thanks.
Phew. That's on y'all.
I mean,
over here.
Okay. Well, I mean, I'll say this. I think our city is growing, right? And we know that if you look at Austin and Nashville, they are, well, Austin is very intentional with building from the community up. You look at South by Southwest, that kind of was like the start of it. It was Keep Austin Weird before then, but essentially, the people in the community cultivated what Austin became, and there is always that tipping point. So you do think about that, like, are we going to hit a tipping point where it becomes something bigger than what we want to see it? But I feel like growth is inevitable. Our city is growing, and we have to be able to step up to the plate to adjust to that as far as what the experience is. And I think when you think about Nashville, some people do feel like Nashville is getting a little bit more kitschy with the honky tonk and the bridal parties and all of that stuff. I think keeping it authentic, I think is a part of that. I think not looking at it as how do we sensationalize it, but like keeping it authentic. And Columbus has always been a very chill, very we're not trying to be too much. I think that's going to be in our nature. That's my point.
Yeah, and that brings to light. Go right ahead.
I was just going to add very quickly from our perception study, one of the pieces that I did not cover is that while there may be a case for that at some point way into the future, overall our residents see that tourism benefits the area and they want to see more of it. And so we do have some really good data around that. Again, we, years from now may be at that kind of Nashville, Austin place, but we are not there now and they want more and they want to see their community get the credit that's due for all the amazing things we do have here.
Yeah, and just finally, a brand is what they say you are, not what you say you are. And we do always want more investment. I mean, there's no way I've ever heard of a marketer say, yeah, I've had enough. That's enough. But the notion is if you have too much, we kind of feel obligated to spend and just to say we're here, and then we start to tell people who we are or what they need to think about us instead of allowing folks to experience it and make up their minds for themselves. That's where the authenticity that Yogi's talking about comes from, is that we're not going to go out there and tell this is what we are. Yes, Columbus actually allows people to get here and then figure it out for themselves. When you have too much money, I think the Nashvilles happen. What's that?
I said we're definitely not there. Yeah.
Right, and I'm not bashing Nashville, by the way, because there are a lot of great things about that city, but we have seen it maybe jump a few sharks.
I mean, I will also say on the Nashville front, part of where I think their issues are stemming is they went so hard into music and to that Broadway experience that the overcrowding that's happening in that space is miserable. And so it's driving a lot of the negative perceptions that are coming out of that city. One of the nice things about where we are and what we're trying to build is there's not one thing. So we have this large city that people can experience in a lot of different ways. It'll alleviate some of the congestion and misery that Nashville is unfortunately experiencing. And I was born there. I, again, have nothing against Nashville.
We have just a few minutes left for a final question, about 3 minutes. A question, it looks like this is kind of for everyone. Steve Swift, watching online, asks, how can we better showcase our city's wonderful diversity, not only with our people, but also with our economy, and leverage that toward our brand?
Let's start here.
Yeah, I love that.
You're right there.
And shout out to Steve, too. I know Steve. That's my homie. That's another thing that I really believe with fashion. Fashion is the innovation around fashion is birthed from the community, is birthed from people of color, is birthed from a lot of cultural inputs. And then what we've done well here is the business of fashion, to where we can take a small boutique and scale it to something that's a global, empire like we've done over and over. So I think what we have in Columbus, and this is why I got so excited about it, was a chance to give people that equitable opportunity where we, invest into our communities and showcase our diversity through fashion, giving people of all, colors and, ethnicities a chance to be a part of that industry by, one, education, where we just talked about that, access, exposure, and pipeline and pathways for opportunity. So we are 2 parts diversity, right? 1 part fashion, 1 part innovation at CFA, and we're going to continue to push that mission forward to showcase the beauty of our people and our culture here through the lens of fashion, but also giving them opportunities to find their future. So I think our diversity in Columbus is something we should definitely be leaning in on. We have a lot of nationalities here, and that's the way I'm playing my part.
Yes, Sarah.
And I'll just say, and we're here to tell those stories. That has been a huge mission of ours, always, and with big focus even through this campaign. And we want to hear those stories. We partner with so many people here in this room and beyond, but we will continue to leverage our platforms to help tell those stories.
Stephanie or Steve?
Yeah, just real quick, I'd like to add that, and I've seen this in a few cases in European DMOs or destination marketing organizations where they are actually building toolkits and democratizing their brand by giving it to everybody who lives there. And then individual communities can express the brand in their own way, and it's free. I mean, so basically we're taking advantage of the muscle of the community. So the Italian Village folks may do it differently than some other folks, and then we get to see the Asian perspective. We get to see the LGBTQ+. So it's happening in new ways that don't necessarily require spend.
And I would just add to what you were saying earlier too, Steve, just never lose the plot. I think what's really important, particularly if you're a business owner and not a marketer, we always push for outside-in thinking. So you may think you are an N of 1. You may think that your perspective is the perspective, but if you can maintain a pulse on what your target is asking for, saying they need, that is a great way to maintain what it is that your brand should be. Okay? All right. Well, I wish we had more time. Honestly, it's been a lot of fun. I really appreciate all of you all, and I appreciate the really engaged audience. But I'm getting the wrap-up signal, which Doug just gave me, so I'm going to turn it over to Kristen Easterday for concluding remarks. Thank you. Thank you all.
Well, I hope you found this forum as energizing as I did, and I hope that you are walking away more prideful about who you and we collectively authentically are. So thank you to the Ellis for hosting us once again, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, and the Columbus Dispatch for supporting today's live stream. And of course, we have to thank our awesome panelists, Yohanan, Yogi Terrell, Sarah Towns, Stephanie Spicer, Steve Susi, and our host, who is just about to turn 40, Jennifer Walton. Woohoo! I hope you make plans to join us next week because we'll be talking about, is Central Ohio ready for retirement? You're not quite, not yet. And we'll explore some of Franklin County's growing population issues. So thank you again, everyone. We could not do this without you. Have a great afternoon.